Hey, what's going on? Thanks for joining me. This is episode number 10 of the Liam Jones Fine Art Show. Not anymore. Well, this is now called the Open Hand Art Show. I've rebranded because I don't want to be called Liam Jones Fine Art. I mostly take issue with the fine art part of that name. That's kind of, well, I'll talk about it. We'll get into that. But mostly I like the name Open Hand better. It alludes to martial arts. It alludes to charity. It alludes to kind of an overall attitude of holding the things that you care about, like money and ideas and whatnot, with an open hand. So you offer them, and you're willing to let go of them too. So it's a cool kind of mental state, right? So that's the idea. So I have a new intro, and then after this, we're going to get into a digital portrait, the first of 5 of digital portraits of some women. So let's do it. So yeah, I've changed the name from Liam Jones Fine Art to Open Hand Art. Fine art is my background. It's what I went to school for, and I kind of feel betrayed about that. It's easy to feel betrayed by the fine art industry because it's just so radically like out to lunch in so many ways. It's so full of contradictions and problems. That like just to have it in my name, it always rubbed me the wrong way, but it's like I come from painting and fine art. It doesn't sound offensive right away, but as it's grown on me over time, it's taken up the connotation of extreme Marxism, not wanting to make any money and also being pretentious. And that's not to disparage people who call themselves fine artists. Because I'd be a hypocrite if I did that, obviously, right? Like I just changed the name now. But, other people who are in the fine art stream, it's not awful. It's not. But, as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate what kind of being a little bit more open is, and kind of learning, it's like that song, Learn to Walk on Both Sides Now, right? Where I grew up kind of lefty, and into that kind of thing. And when I went to university and first started going into the fine art stream, you had to choose, right? You couldn't just go, especially in college, I think it was. In college, you had to choose between your streams. In university, it was just art, and you were basically inundated with Marxism from start to finish, radical feminism, gender studies, and all that stuff. And it's just like you had no choice. You were subjected to it. And virtuosity and actual being able to paint was frowned upon, of all things. I was made fun of in university for being able to draw. It was ridiculous. But I did get a lot of, education from that. And then when I went over to college, I stopped university after 2.5 years because why would I give money to crazy Marxists who were telling me not to sign my artwork because my artwork belongs to the greater good? It's like, come on, give me a break. You guys have no clue about the real world whatsoever. Like people in academia, like I love Jordan Peterson for the stuff that he's been talking about because it put everything into perspective for me. And it made me realize that I'm not crazy. That's really what it is. And I think a lot of guys are saying the same thing, right? Not just guys, but a lot of people in general who, as you live your life and you go out there and you try to earn a living and raise a family and whatnot, Marxism has all kinds of problems. It's not the end of the world. I mean, my dad loves Marxism. So many people I know and my friends are Marxists and socialists, but I'm sorry, I disagree with that belief, and I want nothing to do with it anymore in my business life. So I distance myself from the fine art title and go over into something else. I've also kind of laid down my paintbrush on canvases for a little bit. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I'm into digital art, and I'm getting back into comic book work and illustration stuff. So what I'm doing here is a portrait of a girl. So this starts off with a drawing, loose kind of sketch in Photoshop. So Photoshop and me, we're frenemies. Photoshop is not enjoying the learning curve in Photoshop by any means, and it's really, really glitchy with the stylus. Just on a technical level, it's, it could be better. It's good for photos, that's for sure. But as a drawing program, I think I'm, moving over to Clip Studio is probably the best move. I see a lot of people talking about that, including the man Mel Milton, whose videos I'm following on YouTube. Mel Milton is amazing. He's great, and he just went over to Clip Studio Art as well. But it's just like drawing or painting. It doesn't matter what pen or brush you use or what your medium is. If you got chops, you got chopped. Period. And they translate over to anything. The problem with this was, and I cut out so much from this time lapse here. There's like experimenting with brushes. There's glitches. There's all kinds of shutdowns. There's like fixing issues, technical issues that have absolutely nothing to do with the artwork, just all about the program. And that's frustrating. It's really, you don't get that with analog. When you're sitting there in front of a canvas, you'll have problems with drawing times and whatnot and different things, but like not to the level that Photoshop has. And yet, when you draw digitally, there's all kinds of advantages. Like you can see here, I'm spinning the image around, moving it, I'm flipping it. It's amazing to be able to do that. So it's not awful to be working in Photoshop, but my goodness, what a pain in the hole. Seriously. Anyway, so what I'm doing here, if you're following what's happening on the artwork, is I'm just kind of getting a sense of tone and color. And I haven't got a process for this yet. I'm feeling my way through. So I went in and used soft brushes first to give a whole bunch of variation in tone and then select from that. And then what I'm doing is playing with a complementary color scheme to try and get a sense of depth by using color rather than just sticking with a more like virtually monochromatic color tone, which is what a lot of artists, especially beginners, do. But when you've painted a long time, and I've had some, I gotta give credit where credit's due. It's not me. I had some amazing teachers, especially in the Ontario College of Art and Design, that were big on color theory, and I soaked it up. It's fantastic. Actually, I could probably show you a really cool portrait to give you a sense of what I'm doing here. And this actually, to be honest, I didn't even study this portrait of Victor Choquet. I don't know, my French is awful. But this is a Cézanne portrait here. This portrait here is probably the best example of a Cézanne, I guess, in his mastery of color when it comes to drawing people, because he was known for doing still lifes and oranges and that kind of thing. But he was no slouch when it came to portraiture either, as this beautiful piece of work here demonstrates. So technical, right? To be able to use color like this is, you got to be dedicated. You got to love it. But what you can notice, first of all, is that he's not going everywhere in terms of color. He's sticking mostly with a complementary color scheme, and he moves around the color wheel only slightly, like using yellows for highlights and whatnot. But he doesn't move too far off into like blues and purples and whatnot. He's sticking primarily with red and green here. And so what I'm doing in my own portrait is using using yellow and purple as the complementary color scheme, and moving over into red just a little bit in the cheeks and nose and what have you. I don't know if it's that effective. Just having fun with it mostly. You gotta just be light on yourself as you're practicing. I haven't done portraits in quite a while, so this is really fun for me. So her face at this point is looking kind of childish to me. I'm trying to refine it a little bit, make her lips a little bit more proper, but I'm getting too tight at this point. It's really just a fight. It's a fun fight. It's like a fight on my own terms, but like here I am experimenting with brushes, for instance, and in order to get to that point, I had to download some 300 brushes from the website, and that was no fun. That took like a long time to get to be able to figure out how to get the brushes, because there were technical problems with the website, and I mean the list goes on. It's just so stupid how difficult this was to get it all set up, initially. There's a reason why there's such a huge learning curve with Photoshop, and a lot of it is just completely unnecessary. But regardless, it's not awful, and I'm enjoying the time lapse. I really like looking at artists' time lapse kind of in general. Like, you learn so much about the process, especially from an artist who knows what they're doing. Like for instance, right here, I'm using some colors on the chin. I'm using blue to recede the part of the chin that would normally jump out more for me. I tend to have a problem with chins being too prominent. It's been an issue with me in the past. And a little bit of work in the background, and there I'm being spammed. Sorry about that. I'll turn off my phone next time. It's just a spam call. The Google Robobot. Yeah. Anyway, so here I am experimenting with some hair stuff. I originally got a couple of reference photos. This is no girl in particular. This is someone from my head, but I am referencing some like hairstylist shots. And the girl in question is actually Korean, I think. And then I mix that with some white girls and stuff, just so there's no copyright issues. I'm just using some reference to help me balance things out and compensate for the fact that I haven't drawn this kind of thing in many years. So yeah, it's fun to get back to my chops, back to the basics. So there's some filter colors. That's in acrylic painting, that would be probably more effective, but it still works here. It would probably be better with some color dodge or color burn techniques thrown in there as well, or some curves, layers, what have you. And that's just learning the digital equivalent for what you do in real painting, with transparencies. So at this point here, I had lost perspective on the work altogether, and I thought her lips looked fine, but actually they were really small and kind of like pursed. She doesn't look friendly. She looks kind of standoffish to begin with, but it could also her pose could also speak to, she's checking you out. She's kind of got some discernment happening. She's like, all right, but she's also confident. That's when I just made her lips bigger, so she wasn't so purse-lipped. Yeah, so basically it's just final touches and knowing when to stop. It's not going to get much better from here. It's already kind of too tight, so it's best just to move on to a different piece of artwork. Yeah, that's the biggest part, especially in a lot of abstract work, is just knowing when to stop. The rawness is actually beautiful, and it's good to learn to live with it. I see a lot of amazing artists who would be better off if they just let their brush strokes live a little bit, and that's been a main lesson for me as an artist over the years, is just knowing when to stop, because it's not awful. It's not an awful portrait here. It's okay, Anyway, there you have it. There's the portrait, number 1 of 5. So we've got 4 more. I'll do some women, I'll do some men, probably get into some landscapes and cityscapes and stuff over the next while as I get ready, ramping up to do some illustration work, probably some comic book work down the road. And yeah, so this is episode number 10. So from here on in, it's the Open Hand Art Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you. I'm just beginning this thing, and I know I'm, I'm a newbie. So thanks so much for coming along. It's great to have you here. I'll see you soon.